Imagine this. You walk into a dealership on a Saturday afternoon, and a salesman hands you the keys to a brand new car. It smells like leather and possibility. The price tag reads $47,000. You feel that pull, that desire to own something fresh and untouched. But before you sign, I want to show you something that most people never see. We can have a little fun with this one. If you're interested in building real wealth, instead of watching it disappear, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what comes next. Over the next 30 years, that decision will cost you roughly $290,000 more than the alternative. Not the car itself, the true cost, the interest, the insurance, the depreciation, and the opportunity cost that almost nobody talks about. This isn't opinion. This is math. Cold, simple, inevitable math. Let's start with the purchase itself. A $47,000 vehicle financed over 6 years at a typical rate of around 6.5% interest. Your monthly payment lands at approximately $760. That sounds manageable. That's the trap. Most people look at that number and say yes without doing the second part of the calculation. But here's what that monthly payment actually contains. On day one, you owe the full amount. The interest starts accruing immediately. That first payment of $760? Only about $250 goes toward the actual car. Can you believe that? I know, right? The remaining $510 is pure interest paid to the lender. You're not buying a car. You're buying the privilege of paying interest. As the loan progresses, the ratio shifts slightly. More of each payment chips away at the principal. But by the time you've paid the vehicle off, you've sent the lender an extra $10,000 beyond the original price. The car costs you $57,000 now, not $47,000. Already you're behind. But the interest is just the opening act. Now we have to talk about depreciation, and this is where the math gets genuinely painful. That brand new car loses about 20% of its value in the first year alone. You drive it off the lot, and suddenly it's worth about $37,000 instead of $47,000. You've lost $10,000 in a single day before you've even made your first payment. Over the next 5 years, the depreciation curve continues its downward slide. The car loses about 50% of its original value by year 5. At that point, your $47,000 purchase is worth roughly $23,000. In year 6, when you finally own it outright, that vehicle is worth around $18,000. You've paid $57,000, and you're left holding an asset worth $18,000. That's a loss of $39,000 to depreciation alone. And here's the worst part. You still own it. The car doesn't disappear when the loan is paid off. You still need to insure it, maintain it, fix it. For the next 24 years, you're driving a depreciating asset that costs you money every single month. Stupid insurance adds another layer of expense that most people underestimate. A brand new $47,000 car carries comprehensive and collision coverage, and that costs more than insuring an older vehicle. For a financed car, the lender requires full coverage. You're looking at roughly $150 per month on average. And if you live near the hood, double that player. That varies by location and your driving record. Over 30 years, that's $54,000 spent protecting an asset that's worth almost nothing by the end. Now let's imagine an alternative path. Instead of financing that new car, you buy a reliable used vehicle. Not a hoopty, something 8 to 10 years old with good maintenance history. A Toyota Camry, a Honda Accord, a Mazda that's known for longevity. You pay cash. $12,000. It's not flashy. It's not new. But it runs, and it runs well. Your insurance on that used car costs about $80 per month because the liability risk is lower and full coverage is optional. That's $32,000 over 30 years instead of $54,000. You're already saving $22,000 on insurance alone. If you like the content so far, hit that like button because understanding these gaps in financial literacy is exactly what changes outcomes over decades. Now, here's where it gets interesting. That difference between $47,000 for the new car and $12,000 for the used car is $35,000. But you don't just have $35,000 sitting there. You invest it. Every single month, you invest the difference between what you would have paid in car payments and what you're actually paying. You are going to pay $760 per month for the car loan. Your used car is paid off. no monthly payment. Instead, you put that $760 into a simple, boring index fund that tracks the overall market. Now, you can buy yourself a different color suit. The S&P 500, which historically returns about 10% per year when you account for inflation and market cycles over long periods. Let's see what happens. In the first year, you invest $9,120. That grows at 10%. By the end of year one, you have about $10,000. In year two, you add another $9,120 to an account that's now $10,000 strong. Compound interest begins its work. The money you invested in year one earns returns. The money you invest in year two also earns returns. They feed each other. By year five, you've contributed $45,600, but your account is worth about $63,000. The market has added $18,000 through compound growth. You're not just saving money anymore. You're making money on the money you saved. By year 10, your contributions total $91,200, but your account is now worth $174,000. The market has nearly doubled what you put in. You're beginning to feel the exponential curve. It's subtle at first, almost invisible. But it's working. By year 20, something remarkable has happened. You've contributed $182,400 over 2 decades. But your account holds $635,000. The market has added over $450,000. Your money is making more money than you are. The curve has become steep. By year 30, you've invested a total of $273,000. But that account is now worth approximately $1.2 million. The market has added over $900,000. The power of compound interest over 3 decades is almost unimaginable until you see it written out like this. Meanwhile, your used car from year 0 is long gone. You've replaced it maybe 3 times over 3 decades, always buying reliable used vehicles in the $8,000 to $12,000 range. Maybe you pick up an old-school whip. Let's say you spent $50,000 total on replacing that car over 30 years. Your insurance, maintenance, and replacements have cost you roughly $170,000 total. Now let's count the new car path. The original purchase price was $47,000. You paid an extra $10,000 in interest. You lost $39,000 to depreciation. Your insurance was $54,000 over 30 years. Maintenance and repairs on an aging car added up to another $15,000 over the final decades of ownership. Not to mention fuel cost. The total cost of that new car decision was $165,000. But here's where the real gap opens. You never invested anything. You spent $760 every single month on a car payment for 6 years, then on repairs and maintenance. Most repairs you can't even fix yourself anymore to save on cost. You made no additional wealth. The new car consumed resources and gave nothing back except transportation. Transportation you could have had from the used car for a fraction of the cost. So let's do the final math. The used car path cost you roughly $170,000 for 3 decades of reliable transportation, and you ended up with $1.2 million in an investment account. The new car path cost you roughly $165,000, and you ended up with nothing but an old, worn-out car sitting in your driveway. The difference in final wealth position is approximately $1.2 million. That's not quite the $290,000 I mentioned at the start. That's the difference between the new car and the used car. $290,000 is the immediate gap when you look at what you spent, what you invested, and what you made. The new car cost you $290,000 more in actual outflow and lost opportunity than the used car over 30 years. But the full picture, the complete picture, is actually much worse, because that $1.2 million isn't just money sitting in an account. If you took that $1.2 million at the end of year 30 and retired on it, you could live on the interest alone. 4% returns on $1.2 million is $48,000 per year. That's income for life, created entirely by choosing differently at that dealership 30 years ago. The new car choice wasn't really about the car at all. It was about the money you spent, the money you didn't earn, and the money that money could have made. 3 decades of compound growth erased by a single decision made on a Saturday afternoon when you felt that pull towards something shiny and new. This doesn't mean you can never have a new car. It means you need to understand the true cost before you decide. Some people will say the joy of driving a new car for 6 years is worth the financial cost. That's a legitimate choice if you make it with your eyes open. But most people make it blind, looking only at the monthly payment and never at the 30-year picture. The math is patient. It doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about how the new car smells. It simply compounds, year after year, decade after decade, until the gap becomes so enormous that it's almost impossible to comprehend. $290,000. Over $1 million when you factor in the life you could have lived on the interest. So the next time you feel that pull toward a new car, pause. Do the math. Look at the used option. Calculate the investment alternative. Then decide with full knowledge of what that decision costs. The choice itself isn't wrong. The blindness is. Subscribe so you never miss these breakdowns. Like this video if it gave you clarity on how long-term financial decisions actually work. And tell me in the comments, what financial decision are you making right now without looking at the full 30-year picture? I genuinely like to know. This is how we learn from each other. I hope we had a little fun here. Thanks for watching.